Lisa sat at the kitchen table, staring at a pile of overdue bills. The numbers blurred as tears filled her tired eyes. She rubbed her temples, exhausted from another long shift at the diner. The paycheck she had just received was already gone. Rent, groceries, and daycare had eaten it up before she could even breathe. She glanced at the clock. Almost midnight. She had to be up in a few hours to start all over again. Lisa was a single mother, raising her 5-year-old daughter, Emily, alone. Life had never been easy, but lately, it felt impossible. Every day was a fight to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Her job barely covered the essentials, and the debt kept growing. Medical bills from Emily's hospital stay last year. Credit card debt from the months Lisa had no choice but to survive on borrowed money. Loan payments she could never catch up on. The phone rang. She didn't need to answer to know who it was. Another debt collector. Lisa sighed, pushing the phone away. She couldn't deal with it right now. A small voice broke through the silence. "Mommy?" She turned to see Emily standing in the doorway, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Lisa quickly wiped her tears and forced a smile. "What is it, sweetheart? Are you sad?" Lisa shook her head. "No, baby, everything's okay. Go back to sleep." Emily hesitated, then walked over and hugged her mother tightly. Lisa held her daughter close, closing her eyes. For Emily, she had to keep going. No matter how hard it got. Lisa lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The numbers wouldn't stop running through her mind. Rent, overdue by 2 months, electricity bill past due, loan payments stacking up. No matter how much she worked, it was never enough. She turned to look at Emily, sleeping peacefully beside her. Her daughter had no idea how bad things were. Lisa made sure of that. She shielded her from the stress, the fear, the never-ending struggle. But how much longer could she keep pretending? Every morning she woke up before sunrise, packed Emily's lunch, and dropped her off at daycare before heading to the diner. The shifts were long, the pay was low, and the customers weren't always kind. But she smiled through it all, hoping for a bigger tip, hoping for anything that could help her get by. At night, she cleaned offices, mopping floors and emptying trash cans, her body aching from exhaustion. Still, the calls kept coming. "Miss Carter, this is your final warning before legal action is taken. We need immediate payment, or your electricity will be shut off." Her hands trembled as she listened to each voicemail. She had no answers, no solutions. Then came the worst news yet. Her landlord slipped a letter under her door. Eviction notice. Lisa's stomach dropped. She read it again, hoping she was mistaken. But no, it was real. She had 7 days to pay or leave. Tears welled in her eyes, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had Emily to think about. She couldn't break down. Not now. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her phone and searched for extra jobs. Any job. She was willing to do anything. She had no choice. Lisa rushed through the busy cafe, balancing a tray of coffee cups. The morning rush was always hectic, but today felt worse. She was running on barely 3 hours of sleep, her feet already aching from her overnight cleaning job. As she placed a cup in front of a well-dressed man sitting by the window, her hands trembled. The exhaustion was catching up to her. "Careful," the man said as he steadied the cup. His voice was calm, but his sharp eyes noticed the tiredness on her face. Lisa forced a polite smile. "Sorry about that." He nodded and returned to his laptop, but his gaze followed her as she hurried back behind the counter. Something about her reminded him of someone, a kind of struggle he had seen before. Moments later, Lisa stepped outside for a quick break, pulling out her phone to check her bank balance. Her heart sank, barely enough for groceries. A homeless man sat near the cafe entrance, shivering in the cold. Lisa sighed, then walked back inside, grabbed a coffee, and handed it to him. "It's not much, but I hope it helps," she said with a gentle smile. The man's eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, miss. God bless you." Inside the cafe, the well-dressed man, Mr. Carter, watched the exchange. Despite her obvious struggles, she still had kindness to give. It wasn't pity he felt, it was admiration. Lisa didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change. Mr. Carter sat in his car outside the cafe, thinking about what he had just witnessed. He was a man who had everything: wealth, power, a life of comfort. But watching Lisa struggle, seeing the weight she carried, stirred something deep inside him. Most people walked past hardship without a second glance. But Lisa, despite her own problems, still stopped to help someone else. That kind of heart couldn't be ignored. Curious, he made a few discreet calls. With his connections, it didn't take long to find out about Lisa's situation. Single mother, works 2 jobs, deep in debt, on the verge of eviction. He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, thinking. He had given to charities before, donated to organizations. But this felt different. This was personal. Lisa didn't need charity, she needed relief. She needed a fresh start. With a firm decision, he called his assistant. Find out how much she owes, every bill, every loan, and pay it off, quietly. There was a pause on the other end. All of it, sir? Yes, rent, utilities, medical bills, everything. I don't want her to know until it's done. Understood. Hanging up, Mr. Carter exhaled. It wasn't about money for him, it was about what money could do. For Lisa, life had been a constant battle. But soon, she would wake up and feel something she hadn't in years: freedom. Lisa rushed to her landlord's office, gripping the eviction notice in her hand. She was out of options. She had called every place she could think of, begged for extra shifts, even considered selling the few valuables she had left. She stepped inside, heart pounding. Maybe she could buy a little more time. Maybe they'd let her stay just 1 more month. I just need. She started, but the landlord held up a hand, cutting her off. No need to explain, Lisa. Your balance is paid. Lisa blinked. Did she hear that right? Paid? She whispered. The landlord nodded, sliding a receipt across the desk. Not just this month, your entire past due rent, plus the next 6 months. You're clear. Lisa's legs felt weak. She grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself. There's no way. Who did this? The landlord shrugged. Anonymous donor. Tears filled Lisa's eyes. Her hands shook as she picked up the receipt, staring at it as if it might disappear. She mumbled a thank you and walked out in a daze. The cold air hit her face, but she barely noticed. How was this possible? Her phone buzzed, a new email from the hospital. Confused, she opened it. Outstanding medical balance. Paid in full. Her breath caught. She scrolled down, seeing the same message from her utility company, then the credit card company, then the loan office. Every debt, every bill, gone. Lisa's knees buckled. She sank onto a bench, covering her mouth with her hands. For years she had carried this weight. Sleepless nights, overwhelming fear. The endless pressure of trying to survive. And now, it was gone. She let out a sob, a sound mixed with relief, disbelief, and gratitude. Emily's voice snapped her back. Mommy? Lisa looked up, her daughter standing beside her with a worried expression. Lisa scooped Emily into her arms, holding her tightly. Tears streamed down her face, but this time, they weren't from pain. They were from something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Lisa sat at the kitchen table, still trying to process everything. Her bills were gone. Her rent was paid. She was free. But who? She had no wealthy friends, no distant relatives with money, no one who would or could do something like this. Then a knock at the door. She opened it to find an envelope on the doorstep. No sender, no return address, just her name written neatly on the front. With trembling fingers she tore it open. Inside was a single note. Everyone deserves a fresh start. No signature. No explanation. Just those words. Lisa's heart pounded. Someone had seen her struggle. Someone had cared enough to wipe away years of pain and hardship. She ran to the cafe the next morning, desperate for answers. She scanned the room, hoping, praying, to see a familiar face. And then she saw him. Mr. Carter sat in his usual seat by the window, sipping his coffee. His eyes met hers for a brief moment, a knowing look passing between them. Lisa opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, he gave her a small nod, as if to say, "You don't have to thank me." Then, just like that, he stood up, left a few bills on the table, and walked away. Lisa's eyes welled with tears. She never got to say the words in her heart, never got to ask why. But somehow, she knew. It wasn't about recognition, it wasn't about charity. It was simply kindness, the kind that changes lives. Weeks passed, but Lisa still couldn't believe it. Every morning, she woke up expecting it all to be a dream, but it was real. She was free. No more overdue notices. No more fear of eviction. No more calls from debt collectors. For the first time in years, she could breathe. With her fresh start, Lisa found a stable job with better pay and normal hours. No more juggling 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. She had time now. Time for Emily. Time for herself. Time to live. She moved into a safer apartment, one with a small playground where Emily could run and laugh without worry. One evening, as they sat on their new couch watching cartoons, Emily turned to her mother. "Mommy, why are you smiling?" Lisa hadn't even realized it, but she was. She pulled her daughter close, kissing her forehead. "Because, sweetheart, sometimes good things happen when you least expect them." Emily nodded, as if she understood, then snuggled into her mother's arms. Lisa never saw Mr. Carter again. She never got to say thank you, but she didn't need to. She carried his kindness with her every day. And one day she promised herself, when she was strong enough, stable enough, she would do the same for someone else.